If you are in that space, the one between who you are right now and who you know you're meant to be, I need you to understand something before we go any further. You are not behind. You are not stuck because you stopped trying, because you don't have enough resources, because you don't have enough skill, enough time, enough money, enough strategy. Here's the reason you're stuck. It's because you are loyal. The next few minutes are not designed to motivate you. I'm here to bring more clarity to how your loyalty to who you were is blocking who you're becoming, who you're meant to be. And I know we've heard it all before. Level up, reinvent yourself, rebrand, step into your next era, become your best self. And on the surface, it sounds like the right answer, like that's exactly what you need to do. But very few people speak about what that actually requires. And when they do, it's typically centered in performance. Change your habits, refine your mindset, adjust your strategy, as if simply stacking better behaviors onto the version of you that already exists is somehow going to create a different outcome, create this new life. And for clarity, do your habits, mindset, and strategy play a role in who you're becoming? Absolutely. But they are tools, and tools operate within a structure. They do not redesign the structure. Identity is the architecture. Think of it like you're building a castle. You can source the finest materials, hire the best craftsmen, plan the most beautiful interior. But if the blueprint was drawn for a cottage, you will never be able to build that castle, not with that blueprint. The blueprint decides the foundation and everything that can be built on top of it. If you want to build a castle, the architecture has to be designed for a castle. You cannot cottage your way into a castle, right? It's just as simple as that. We spend so much time focused on the tools and on the aesthetics, but little time focused on the identity or the blueprint. This is what I mean when I say identity. Identity is the internal agreement that you hold about who you're allowed to be, what you are allowed to claim, what you are able to hold without destabilizing, without fragmenting. Identity sets that ceiling for what feels safe, for what feels accessible. And yes, sometimes you may push past that ceiling, but if your internal calibration has not shifted, if you don't have a new blueprints, you will unconsciously return to what's familiar, the existing blueprint, right? So yes, you can improve your habits, you can work on your mindset, you can refine your strategy. It will all still be within the boundaries of your existing identity, what has already been established. And so this is why identity is almost never the conversation because it doesn't announce itself as the problem. It operates quietly, I would say sneakily, if that's the word, right? Because it operates beneath, at the foundation, beneath the strategy, beneath the 3 steps to whatever, beneath the habits, beneath the decisions that you make about what you're allowed to claim and how much you're allowed to hold and what you're allowed to have. So yes, we keep adjusting the tools, refining the behaviors, not realizing that the ceiling we keep hitting isn't a strategy problem. It's a structural one. It has to do with the structure itself. And I lived this. I lived this. There was a point where my vision had outgrown my identity, and I could feel it. I really could. Back in 2020 and 2021, I had pushed past my existing ceilings or my previous ceilings in my personal and professional life. I had my top earning years, I was living comfortably, and I had this big vision for what I wanted to build. I had expanded beyond what I previously thought was possible, but I had not expanded beyond who I believed I was. who I knew myself to be. And there's a difference. And that difference is where high achievers quietly go to plateau. What I began to recognize first in myself, but then seeing the pattern in many high capacity women that I had encountered, whether it's in my personal life or in my career, was a pattern that now could name and that I call provisional authority. Provisional authority is what happens when you are operating between two identities. You have outgrown the old blueprint, but you have not yet adopted a new one. So you're leading from that in between space. And in the in between space, there is a very specific feeling, right? Because you're moving forward. This is not happening consciously. So you're subconsciously, you're just continuing to move forward, continuing to build, you're holding things together. But on the inside, you're very unsettled. You're very anxious about what's going to happen next. And you're constantly negotiating with yourself, trying to figure out what move to make, what strategy to implement. You're undecided. And the reason most women stay here longer than they probably should is because provisional authority is super intelligent. It's kind of smart. It doesn't look like fear, and it doesn't look like procrastination or avoidance. It looks like being responsible. It feels like leadership in a lot of ways because it actually is. It's just that it's from a provisional posture, from a provisional place, which is why I started mapping the specific postures and the distinct ways provisional authority organizes itself so it can stay invisible. And I need you to understand, I needed this language for myself. If I was ever going to build the empire that I envisioned, I needed to recognize what was keeping me, whether you want to say stuck, whether you want to say plateaued, whether you want to say in a loop, whether you want to say in the middle, what was keeping me provisional. I didn't know that's what it was then, but I know that's what it was now. I needed to understand this for myself first. As I was able to identify and recognize specific patterns that kept showing up in a very consistent, very identifiable way, I recognized that it wasn't just me. It was showing up in many other high performing or high capacity women and men that I knew. And so what I've done is I've categorized and cataloged 6 of the most common identity postures, the patterns that show up most consistently in people who are no longer operating from a regulated blueprint or a blueprint that is in alignment with their vision. Because again, if you have a blueprint for a cottage and you're trying to build a castle, there's a disconnect and there is going to be friction. And so the objective for me now, understanding this, being able to identify this, is to show others or to hold the mirror up for others so that they can look and see, okay, this is what's showing up in my life. Is it because I'm operating from one of these 6 postures? So there's the capable one, the woman who knows she can handle it, whatever life throws at her. She rarely asks for support, even when she's overwhelmed. And it's not because she can't ask for support, but because she's always been the proof that either she doesn't have to or it doesn't really make sense for her to ask for support, right? At a certain level, though, growth requires delegation. And so this is how the capable one can cap their own capacity. And then there's the steady one waiting for the right season, the right timing, the right signal. And it looks like patience because provisional authority always does. But that signal will not come from the outside. It only becomes available when you stop waiting and you start finalizing. And so these postures, all 6 of them, they have one thing in common. They were earned, they were necessary, and you are loyal to them. The loyalty is not a weakness, by the way. It's proof that those versions of you worked. They carried you, they built something real. But loyalty to a blueprint that was designed for a previous level of your life is exactly what keeps you from building your castle, your empire. It's not about doing more because you can't hustle your way into a new internal system, a new internal agreement, a new blueprint. You cannot outperform an outdated blueprint. The upgrade requires something different. You have to subtract to multiply. And it absolutely requires you to first see clearly and precisely which posture or postures you're operating from. Because you can't recalibrate what you have not first identified and named. The identity posture audit helps you to do just that. I designed the audit as a mirror for women like me to see what's keeping them from feeling safe, what's dragging their momentum, delaying your opportunities, eroding your self-trust. Seeing is the first act of sovereignty. You reclaim your power to evolve into the next version of you. You're no longer sitting and waiting, whether it's the reasonable one, the capable one, the earn it identity. You're no longer in a provisional space, but you can now identify exactly who and where you are. That is what it took for me to finally be able to decide. You can access your free copy of the Identity Posture Audit through the QR code on the screen. It's going to be over on one of these sides here, or from the link in the description of this video. My love, if you've made it this far in the video, I know it's because you know you're living from a provisional space right now. And the beauty is this isn't the end of your story. This isn't something for you to be ashamed of. This isn't something that you have to catch up to. This is not a race. The beauty is a new chapter is just beginning. Be sure to stay close, subscribe here on my YouTube channel, join my newsletter, The Empire Frequency. I send out weekly transmissions on identity, energy, alignment, and integration. Because once you decide, then it's time to calibrate. And you don't have to do that alone. Until next time, upgrade the identity, claim the authority, and build the empire that only you can. Peace and love.